Well, first of all, it's a collective vision built by an incredible team of people that we have working with us. This is for 360 Architecture, this is our first venture into Alberta, and it's an extraordinary environment here. We're obviously struck by the natural beauty, the weather, all the attributes that the environment affords here. Inspiration came in the form of the natural environment. It came in the form of the game of hockey, the speed and the thrill and the movement of that. But you can't ignore the presence of oil in this region, and the name of the Edmonton Oilers inspires us a lot. So the image of the building is really a manifestation of trying to blend all of these inspirations that we get, as you see, we're trying to convey an iconic landmark building in downtown Edmonton that's filled with excitement, movement, inspiration, and will be a catalyst for future development. That's the idea.
How do you make sure it's not a bunker?
I'm sorry, a bunker?
How do you make sure it's not like a bunker stuck in the...
Okay, great question. Yeah, arenas can be bunkers. We've all been in arenas that are bunkers, and by that I think you mean getting inside of a building in which you are completely disoriented from the external environment. Maybe even within the concourse, completely disoriented with where you are with the event, floor show or hockey game, the event floor as we call it. A little over 10 years ago, there was, George Heinlein, my partner, myself, and others, when 360 was in its infancy, really challenged the paradigm for arenas and trying to open them up and make them extroverted. And some of the first generations of that came out in the late 90s. Now it's matured into not standard fare, but we continue to push the envelope of making these buildings expressive internally and externally, and we play with lots of transparency. When you look at this building, virtually from wherever you are in that building, on any level, in any quadrant of the building, in public areas, you will know where you are on the planet. You will know where you are in the city of Edmonton. It's an important aspect to give these buildings a real sense of place and a real sense of life for the spectators that visit the venues.
The terms vintage and old school were used when you were talking about some of the seating plans.
Yes.
Can you explain what you mean with that?
Yeah, vintage and old school. For those of us who've been fortunate enough to be in some of the older buildings, many of them aren't here any longer. Seating bowls in hockey from old school, from the 20s and 30s, the original 6 venues, very small, intimate buildings. The seats were much narrower, the rows were narrower, the aisles were narrower, everything was smaller, and they're very inspiring because it puts everybody right on top of the ice. It gives you great sight lines, and it's a great environment. As revenue streams for these types of venues came into play, all through the 70s, 80s, and 90s, you saw a lot of introduction of levels of suites and other things. And this kind of exploded, from our perspective, this kind of exploded what we call the seating bowl. And it put a lot of people farther away from the ice or the basketball court or whatever. It's important that we not forget what these vintage venues offer. And what we've tried to capture with this seating bowl are sight lines that are great, as close as possible, efficient as possible, and get the largest population we can down on the ice as possible. The lower bowl in the building that we're proposing has in excess of 9,000 people planned for it, as compared to the arena that is in the area now. Connectivity along 104th Street, proposing 102nd Street for connections north and south, up from the north edge, south of Jasper Avenue. We're trying to convey a sense of connection through the whole city, east and west connections. So the singular most important aspect of this project, we think, is to spark redevelopment, and you do that with sensitivity in its placement, location, and how it lands and fits in the city. Being a landmark building creates an address, creates an attraction, and it's been set up with the current plans to be along great view corridors from the east and west along 104th Avenue and from the south on 103rd Street. The building is set up so that it doesn't have a back facade. Wherever you are around it, it appears to be the front. And it's an important element in arenas. It's very easy to have, a backside for servicing and loading, et cetera, et cetera. And it's critical that we avoid that. And we've taken great pains and care to plan the facility internally and externally to make sure that we have a great view all the way around.
At street level, are you going to have any retail that's facing out to the street that will be open possibly at other times when the arena isn't open? So when you're walking around the building, will there be a coffee shop or some commercial development that's open to people out on as they're walking around the building?
Yes,
Day?
yes. The answer is yes, absolutely. Great care has been taken to balance the need for the arena functions with the need for the community functions. And the way the building has been located or shifted on the site from what has been previously shown to the west allows for development all along the east side. That the phase 1 Catalyst project will be complete. It'll be a complete project, curb to curb all around. And along the east side and facing south, you will have commercial retail. On the north side, you'll have a community rink. So, there's a large portion of the base of the arena that will immediately activate the streets. The balance of the building will have arena functions behind the glass, but everything is set up for tremendous amounts of daylighting and transparency opportunities. At the southwest corner of the venue, we're proposing the Nerve Center for broadcast and event production. It's a really exciting space. If you've seen, the major newscasts with everybody in the background, and you see all that activity, that's what. Arenas have that nerve center. They have that same sense of excitement activity with their production spaces and their production studios, and that's going to be right at the southwest corner at 104th and 104th, and it should be a great, exciting area.
What if council nixes the community rink and, for some reason says no to the winter garden? Can this building still look good, or are you worried about that?
Well, it's a change. It's a change, and it'll look great when it gets done, no matter what happens. We'll take the time, the whole team will take the time to assure that. Nobody wants it to look unfinished or incomplete. It's a step back, but that's the nature of these types of projects. You take several steps forward, and if that happens, I guess that would be characterized as a step back. And it will be taken into consideration, and it will change. I mean, there'll be a new answer for the northeast quadrant for this site. It'll be, I would just suggest it would be equal or better than what you see now. I mean, we'll look at that as an opportunity, not a setback.
Are you concerned about the $450 million limit? Your first time into Canada?
We're always concerned about budget, schedule, and everything. That's always a concern.
You talked about your design.
Look at the bags under my eyes.
You talked about your design team and a number of components that were inspirations for the shape of the building. Did you have a working name for the shape? What is the shape of this building?
Great question. I think, I don't have a pat answer for that. Your ideas are as good as ours. Again, we're not trying to attach a label or a name. That'll happen as people become familiar, as the project matures. We don't have a working title. We don't have a cliche name for it.
What's the exterior made of?
In terms of materials?
Yes.
Metal, glass, and masonry. Metal is zinc, clear glass, maybe some fritted glass, maybe some LED on the building over the top of that facade.
Metal sheet similar to the art gallery?
Exactly similar, yes. Zinc is a wonderful
So
material.
what would this rink have then that no other rink in the NHL would have? We talked about fans on the catwalk, and you talked about the glassed in production area. Is there anything else then that would make this distinctively unique?
Well, I think that there's several things. I think it's hard to prioritize. Excuse the hesitation.
Top four.
Yeah, the top four, top three. One, I think it's. I think what makes it unique, first, from a community standpoint, is the arena is just a piece of a larger project. Even as this Catalyst project is defined, there are other pieces of it. There's the Winter Garden, the LRT lobby, the pedway system to help facilitate connectivity through the city. There's the community rink. There's a parkade underneath the venue, and there's ample opportunity for private sector development adjacent to the arena. That's part of the images and plans that you've seen today. That makes it unique. Most arenas aren't an integrated project like that from day one. You might get the arena and across the street or something added on. It's not unique in that way. I mean, there are other venues that have done it, but I think this is rather extraordinary. Few NHL arenas actually have a community rink component associated with it. I think that makes it a standout. From a sustainability standpoint, this is one of the great aspirations we have is to design this to be certified LEED Silver, which is extraordinary. There is only one other NHL venue that is LEED certified, and that's from the older standards. And with the challenges that we're facing with the new standards, which make it very hard for these types of large assembly venues, the location and the climate of this, they're extraordinary challenges, and we're proud to work on a project where the client has thrown deep with respect to the sustainability objectives for this project. I'd like to think, we'd all like to think, our client, everybody would like to think that the building itself as a landmark and an icon gives an identity or a piece of identity for Edmontonians around the North America, the world. That's a goal of ours. But it's not, we're not doing it in a way to sacrifice the needs of the community. The community has to live with this every day for the next 50, 75 years. And we want it to be a catalyst for future growth. In the not so distant future, I think, we're trying and working hard to set the table for future development. And when the future development gets done, the intent is that everybody look at the landmark venue and say that's what started all of this. And you look around and everything else just fits beautifully into the urban context of downtown, linking all of the disparate communities right now, from North Edge to the Civic Precinct, the Arts District, the Heritage Street of 104th, all the way down to Jasper Avenue. We took inspiration, well, I mentioned where we got our inspiration initially. There's a lot of attractive architecture in Edmonton, and we looked at all of it. I wouldn't single any one particular thing out. Zinc happens to be a fantastic product. It's self-healing. It's very malleable, and it may not be where we land, but that's what we're proposing today.
The video shows lights going around the outside
Yes.
of the arena. What are we looking at when we see that?
Well, what you're looking at is an LED or a media mesh type product, and it's to give the building a sense of movement and life, as opposed to otherwise what would be static. It helps. There's a lot of movement expressed in the building with the way it moves, with the way materials interface and undulate. It's accentuated by light, and LED is a very good product to achieve that. We are in the middle of identifying sponsorship opportunities externally and internally throughout the Arena District, and we're also looking at the public art locations. We've been working with Arts Council on that, and that's in process. What you've seen today is really kind of a purely master planning architectural expression, and we're going to be layering on everything associated with other environmental elements of the Arena District and the arena itself as time progresses. It's a little premature to start throwing things like that out.
I just know under technically that light wouldn't have to be a screen light as shown in video, or would it? It could also be used as printed letters.
I think there's a lot of options that are still under consideration along those lines. You have to be very careful though that you just don't become, the ads in the back of a paper or whatever. You want a nice, delicate balance between your advertising, your public art, your sense of space, the Arena District character, and how it all dovetails into the other neighborhoods.
So 104th has been a big chasm between the south and the north parts of downtown. Just tell me a little bit more about how you're going to bridge that. Do you think you're going to be able to successfully do it with this project?
Yes, I mean, I think, I honestly, our whole team honestly feels like it's an opportunity as opposed to a disadvantage. Working with 104th, and we've worked with other projects in arena districts and other types of mixed-use districts where you had what we call an edge of the earth kind of mentality to a major artery. And I know it's hard to perhaps visualize, but what we can see looking forward is a really dynamic area that goes through the arena district, but it's part of, it's going to express the arena district. There's going to be a calming going on. You're going to know you're in the arena district when you're on that artery. It'll be different, not largely different, but it will be an improvement to 104th. I think it'll spark improvements beyond just the arena district for 104th and how it gets developed. It'll handle all of the traffic that we're planning for traffic long term. We know it's a heavy arterial. It'll have heavy use in the mornings and heavy use in the evenings as the LRT lines mature over the next 10, 20, 30 years. The traffic may lessen, but we're not planning on that. We're planning on it retaining a high level of traffic for a long time. And in terms of activating the street, it's going to have a great street presence. The underside of the Winter Garden, to us, is another elevation. It's not a ceiling. It's a fifth facade, if you will. It's the underbelly, and it's going to be extraordinary under there. It's going to be exciting. We're going to use light and art, and the activation at the base of the Winter Garden on the south side. There's retail or commercial opportunity there. On the north side, we've got an exciting space where the interview room is for the Oilers, and it's also a bit of a shrine to the Oilers, and it'll be not just associated with the games. It's going to be a multi-purpose space that could be rented out, and it'll be an extraordinary space as an amenity to the city of Edmonton.